I have some critical thoughts on the Jeep Wrangler JL and Gladiator JT manual transmission.
Like right there. It just goes to like shoot at you.
I feel like it could be improved, but right now it just lacks what I desire in a manual transmission. And in today's video, we're gonna tell you our thoughts on a manual transmission, as well as how we think it could be worth saving. They're asking us, what do you think about it? Should I buy it? It's the cheapest option. It's going away. I don't like it. I do like it. The biggest one we got in 2025 when we bought our first 2025 Wrangler, actually at the tail end of 24, was why didn't you guys buy this 41 two-door with a manual transmission? Well, the first reason is because we didn't order that Jeep. We bought it directly off the lot, and we kind of had to just make a split decision. The second reason is that we have just heard so many horror stories, first off on that, and also just underwhelming experiences with a manual transmission to the point where I didn't know if we wanted to risk it on a build like this. But ultimately, there was a couple things I saw over the years, and also was consistently reporting on recalls with the manuals, as well as the stop sale of manuals until they could figure out the computer recall on the transmission. While that was all going on a few years ago, we have a good friend that's a local service advisor here in town, and she welcomed me to come back in the back and look at a Jeep that actually had the entire bell housing of the transmission like almost shattered and completely blown out down below. Now, this is before the recall. Now, this Jeep did have higher mileage. It was like 80 to 100,000 miles, so it was something else going on inside there before the recall was able to be completed. But in my opinion, seeing that kind of scared me away, mixed with my kind of limited review of driving a manual transmission JL and just my initial experience with not enjoying it right out of the gate. So behind me, we've got a 2024 Rubicon X in the PW7 white paint code. This is an absolutely beautiful Jeep, and it belongs to our friend Anthony. Lo and behold, we took his Jeep for an afternoon, installed a set of our blue four-door lighting kit in it, but while we were driving this, it kind of dawned on me that this was the first time I had really driven a manual transmission JL or JT for an extended period of time. More than just driving it down the road with some delivery miles to add some gas to it, actually driving it, taking it on some higher speed roads, and then driving it on hills, stop, start, all that stuff functioning with it. And I thought to myself, this could be a really interesting video to talk about the manual transmission. So let's start with this. When I first hopped into this 2024 Rubicon X, it was also really weird because I looked down at the key and it's a Rubicon X, but it doesn't have remote start. And I was like, huh, that looks weird. It almost looks like more of a base key. That's because you can't have remote start with a manual transmission. So I hop into this beautifully loaded Jeep, power seats, all that, and I'm met with my shift knob right here, as well as an extra clutch pedal. First thing, right out of the gate, first gear is just about a granny gear. Anthony, that owns this Jeep, is going to admit the same thing. He starts off very quickly in first and is almost immediately shifting into second. So out of first, yeah, like first is, it's quick, and you're into second. I mean, I shouldn't say quick, you're at 15 miles an hour, but I guess everyone anymore is used to an automatic, just being able to pull out, and you don't have to shift. But I'm in first through third already at 20 miles an hour. Now, should I be winding this out? Probably a little bit more. Yeah, so, I mean, but if we hit it first, the clutch is, like, odd. Like, right away, I'm not even out of this intersection. You know, and it's ready to go. So he said he shifts normally above 2,500, because if not, you're kind of like, you know when you have it in too high of a gear and you're not going fast enough and it starts to stutter a little bit? That's kind of how it felt. The gear shifting was almost instantaneously from first to second, and I do understand that because first gear is used off-road for a crawling gear. However, for daily driving, that's not fun. I remember driving, I've driven so many manuals and owned them in college and high school. The clutch on this manual, it just, I don't know, it feels like a modern clutch or an easy soft clutch that's trying to fit into a rugged vehicle. Ryan, you've owned a manual transmission Honda Civic. They're very smooth. The clutch is smooth. The shifting is smooth. You're also in a very low car. You know, it's a very smooth car. This just, I don't know if it doesn't mesh as well with the rugged off-road tires, the lift on it. Everything's more rugged and robust. And then I went to push the clutch in, and it was so soft going in. And the release just, where I'm used to the TJ, the YJ, you know, the AX5, AX15 transmissions, it just kind of shot back out at me and did not engage very early on. I think that's what we were talking about today when we picked this Jeep up.
Yeah. Like right there.
Is we're very used to in the old Jeeps, when you go to release the clutch, it starts grabbing very quickly. So you don't have to release the clutch too far until it's grabbing and it's starting to move. But on this one, it felt like when the clutch was grabbing the flywheel, it just wasn't doing it until the very last moment. And that led me to almost look like I'd never driven a manual, because when you're going to pull out, you're like waiting, then it finally grabs and it's like right at the end. The problem with that, as we just talked about, is the leverage of your feet and having it rest on something was not available with that. I was very used to, back in the day, being able to kind of rest your ankle or your heel down, release it out just a little bit on the TJ, it grabs, and then the rest of the way you're free and clear. It grabbed very quickly, which is what I was used to, and this is backwards. So that's weird for me as a Jeep guy driving almost every manual transmission they've had, is swapping that over to be a more, I would say almost like it's like a car clutch. Like when you have a race car or something fast, like a Porsche, I'm not talking a race car, but a manual, a Mustang GT, something like that, you're letting that fly all the way out because you're shifting fast. You're not doing it in a Jeep where you just want to be able to ride the clutch and play with it off-road. And that's what I would say is the trickiest part. I guess it's hard for me with a modern vehicle like this to be manual versus like a sports car. I think that's the biggest trick. And I just said to my dad, like, the throw of the actual transmission is what's weird, because like first and second right here are like maybe a few inches away from like fifth and sixth, which I think is kind of odd, because I'm used to like first like whoom, like way, you know, like kind of way over, versus being like, this is, look at how close this throw is. Like that's first and second. See, it says shift to gear 1 not allowed. Look, it was like, watch us trying to, I even try and do it and it's like, no.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not trying, I'm not forcing it in, you're just moving it and the sensor's picking it up. But I'll drop it back into fourth. That's weird. That's really weird. Yeah, well, the computer's monitoring everything, right? Like it's monitoring.
Which seems off, and it's just off of itself.
Like a computer monitored manual. Now, once it gets into gear, when you're in first, when you're in second, you're cruising around town. It's interesting to drive in this because I'm so used to an automatic at this point. But when you're driving around town, it cruises around fine. It's not very powerful, is what I would say. This makes 260 horsepower, 285 pound-feet of torque. The problem with it is 260 horsepower is made at like 6,200, 6,000 RPM, somewhere in that range. So for you to reach maximum torque or even hit maximum horsepower or even reach close to it, you are revving the snot out of this thing. I am talking a 5,000, 5,500 plus RPM shift, which does not feel good. It doesn't feel right in this. I'm used to it in a Mustang. I'm used to flying on, rev that thing out as far as you can, shift it into the next gear, rev it all the way out. It doesn't feel like I should be doing that in this, Ryan. You can agree. I just did, well, I didn't do it if Anthony's watching. But we shifted up at like 5,500 RPM out of second gear here, and you can hear this engine like really whining. It, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. Don't worry. Oh yeah, see, that was too quick of a shift. I gotta get it up there a little bit more. A little bit higher RPMs. Whining them out, race car engine here. It feels like I'm having to rev it completely out to meet that maximum power. And to be honest, it does feel a little bit underpowered with the 410 gears in here. It's a lot of vehicle and a lot of weight to be pushed around. And sixth gear, while I was cruising around about 50, 55 RPM, was pretty doggish. It'd be great on the highway to achieve good mileage, but I think driving around town, having to mess with that clutch all the time and not being used to it right away would kind of start to mess with me. Now let's talk about some pros, because I don't want to bash this thing the entire time, especially if you guys have them, because I am proud of the fact that Jeep is one of the only auto manufacturers out there still producing a manual transmission in this year. Not many people are doing so. It's kind of very rare to be able to find a vehicle that does so. One cool thing I liked is I didn't know if the JK had it. I don't remember in my 2012 was the hill start assist. So basically you're on an incline, Jeep senses it with a manual, and it waited so I could let off the brake, go to the gas, and let the clutch out to a certain point before the Jeep would let off the brakes. That was actually really cool in my opinion. I'm not used to driving a modern manual, so that was nice because on one of these hills it was very steep, so being able to let off the brake and still have the vehicle hold, that was a pretty cool feature. Second thing, that got me thinking of off-roading. If you guys off-road your rigs and you want something that's gonna not have to use all of the brake force to hold you when you're either coming off or coming down off of an obstacle, this is a great thing to have. I mean, so how would we improve this Jeep, and will Jeep actually do it? I mean, my opinion, throw a 4-cylinder turbo in there, make it a much more rugged 6-speed manual, a much more rugged clutch on there that has a quicker engagement off of the clutch. That would be huge for me. Make it a Jeep that's a lot easier to drive and a lot more affordable. Now, the real catch with all this is, will Jeep actually do so? I'm sure manual sales aren't flying out the door. This Jeep was special ordered to get it this way, and I would be venturing to say that manual transmission sales are very, very low percentages for the Jeep community and the Jeep brand, especially with a brand new vehicle. I'm not sure exactly what those statistics are, and if you guys have information on those, we would love to talk about it down below in the comments, but I'm sure it's a very low number. Same like the two-door. I think the two-door is less than 10% of Jeep Wrangler sales. Now you take that 10%, and how many of those are manual? It's probably 1%, 2%. It's a very...
They removed it from the Gladiator now.
They removed it from the Gladiator, so it must not have been selling like crazy, which is weird though, because the Gladiator had the V6 only. So it's like, just leave the manual. Why not run them out? But I think that Jeep was just probably overwhelmed enough with all the recalls that were going on with them, just to get it running right, get the computer fixed, get everything perfect on it, that as a business owner and as a business decision, you're looking at how much they probably invested just to make this one work well, and then looking at the overall sales figures, I don't think that they would do anything to it. It doesn't make sense. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense. Not many vehicles are manual out there, and I think they're holding on, and they're doing a good job by still offering this one now that the recalls, everything else has worked out. But would they reinvest more money into a vehicle that has the lowest portion of sales? For an enthusiast, absolutely it would. But at the end of the day, it's got to be something that makes business and financial sense, as well as engineering sense. Imagine a whole team or a whole room of engineers working on a new manual when they could be working on putting a Hemi in the Gladiator. Right? Like, come on, guys, come on. But in all honesty, yeah, you're paying a whole room of engineers to redesign a manual that's a very low percentage of sales compared to something that would be more profitable, would make more revenue, would make more business sense. So in the grand scheme of things, I think this is what you're going to get. Hopefully it stays till 2028, and then hopefully maybe they'll do something for that model year, but could this be it? Will it make sense to keep it around? I think that's what the biggest conversation is to be had. And also, I'd like to ask you guys, what would you like in a manual? And also give us feedback if you own a manual transmission. Have you had the recalls? Have you had any issues with it? Are you saying, Matt, you're crazy, I love this manual transmission, I've driven every other model? Let us know down below in the comments, because this is a talking point. And I do think a lot of folks that are watching this before they buy their manual Jeep will watch this and read the comments down below. We just had a great family friend of ours who is picking up, she actually just picked it up. She test drove a 2025 manual transmission Sport S with the One Touch, and after driving it was like, nah, I've driven manuals, I want to get a new Jeep, and I kind of just want to enjoy with the automatic. I didn't really like the manual in this. But either way, we hope you enjoyed this video. This is our opinion on the manual, and just a lot of talking here, because we do like to test out these vehicles, give you our opinion, then hopefully our commenters down below can give you an even more insightful opinion of having driven one for quite some time down below in the comments. So definitely check down there. We love chatting with you guys. So until next time though, we're gonna go return this Jeep to Anthony. Unfortunately this time with no new parts, but we do have some pretty cool parts that we're in the works with. Ryan, you might be able to pull up a shot of something we just filmed on the Instagram. So show that up here a little bit. We've got some really cool stuff coming, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. From Ryan behind the camera and me here talking to you, we want you to get out there and earn yours.